Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lightbox panel, sponsored by Sketchboard Pro for Ben Bishop, our special guest today. My name is JJ Harrison. I'm an illustrator, artist, worked in comics and children's book publishing and poster making. So thrilled to have Ben Bishop here. He's one of my favorite artists this past year.
Thank you.
Reading the Turtles books has been awesome. Love to see what you post on Instagram. Super happy that you're allowing us to have this time to talk about your process and
hmm
everything. I wonder if you could start out by giving us a little bit of an introduction, your background,
Sure.
and how you got into this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So my name's Ben Bishop. I'm a comic creator. I live in Portland, Maine. This is my studio, Split Decision Comics, here in Westbrook, Maine, which is just a little bit over from Portland. And basically, I've been drawing since as far back as I can remember. I used to draw when I was 4 years old, like dragons and cowboys and superheroes and aliens and all that stuff. And then when I was 11, I think I have it somewhere. When I was 11, I started self-publishing. Yeah, this is it here.
Wow.
My I'll see if I can switch cameras for you guys. But I started self-publishing when I was 11, and wrote to Marvel asking for a job. And this is the first book I came up with called Splash. And it was published in 1997. It was basically a ripoff of Fantastic Four. I had like the fire guy, the strong guy, the stretchy guy, and the girl. uh, but it basically solidified the fact. It basically solidified the fact that that's all I want to do for the rest of my life. So I basically just tried to do that. So when I was 11, I wrote to Marvel asking for a job. I said, "Hey, I'm Ben Bishop. I really like drawing comics," and they actually have that letter too. I should use my visual aids here. I'm going to switch. Um, yeah, so this is the real letter, or a version of it anyway, photocopy of it that I sent to Marvel asking for a job. I said, "Dear Marvel Comics, I was wondering how old you have to be to work at Marvel Comics. I'm 11 years old and I believe I am very good at drawing. This is why I'm sending you these pictures that I have drawn. Working for Marvel Comics would be a blast. Please send me information. And also, what do you think of my drawing ability?" And so, did they write me back? Probably not. That's usually the answer I get when I ask that. But they actually did. This is the real letter I got back from Darren Auk at the time, the art director. "Thanks for
Wow.
your patience while we looked at your work. Although we appreciate the effort you put into your samples, unfortunately, we can't consider your work until you graduate high school. Your enthusiasm is definitely appreciated, so keep up the good work. As you would expect, it takes years of training and practice to be ready for Mighty Marvel. If that's your goal, it's up to you to keep sharpening your skills. You're doing great work for your age group. Send me some new samples after you graduate and keep at it." So that was really encouraging, actually, the fact that they wrote me back. This was a time when they still put the address and the phone number in the comics and things like that. So that
Yeah.
solidified the fact that it was like a job that could actually be attainable. He wasn't like, "Oh, that's a neat idea," or whatever. But he gave me two pieces of advice, which were to, get older and get better. And I was going to get older anyway. So that started happening. And then it was just a matter of hours. It was a matter of drawing every single day, and trying to get good enough. And then 2004, I was graduating high school in New Hampshire, and I was like, "Okay, how do I get a job now? I'm graduating high school." Like the guy said, I couldn't just call them up. The movies were huge now, so they weren't putting that stuff in the comics anymore. And so, like, as you know, and so many other comic creators, usually when you're leaving high school, the answer is college. The other answer would be, going to art conventions with your big portfolio and waiting in line for hours just to tell them, just to hear that you can't draw hands, and come back next
Yeah.
year and try again or
Right.
something like that. So I knew right off the bat I didn't want to do it that way. So I tried to go to art school here in Maine, which is what brought me here. And I loved it. And I had a great first year, and I was finally getting straight A's because there was no math and no gym. But then come the second year, they called me down to the office and they're like, "Hey, Ben, we're really sorry, but you can't go to school here anymore." And I was like, "Well, what did I do? Am I in trouble?" And I didn't do anything wrong. I just couldn't afford it. It's like expensive. Everybody's heard
Oh,
about how expensive it is. And so I'm like walking around town and I'm like, "Okay, I'm in Portland. Like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? What do I want to do?" And I actually ran into a teacher who I had at Maine College of Art there, and told her the situation. And she basically said something along the lines of like, "Well, if you want to make comics, why don't you just make comics?" And I was like, that's like my mantra now, because I just knew, like, that's why I started making comics, is because it's one of those things you can just do by yourself. You can write, illustrate, self-publish, make up your own characters, those characters can later be like animated or on, underwear like the Ninja Turtles or toys and things like that. And that's what I wanted. I wanted those like big franchise characters to have like the story how I wanted it in the comic, and then it just goes
Mm.
wherever it goes. And so I'm still doing that stuff today. But basically, what it came down to that day when I realized if I want to make comics, I should just make comics is I spent the next 4 years making my very first graphic novel, which is called Nathan the Caveman, and it's 300 pages. That's why it took so long. And this was back
Wow.
in like the top shelf blankets days, like Craig Thompson.
Uh-huh.
It's really, really inspiring to me. And I was like, I can do a 300 page love story. And it's like, just like about why people make art. Yeah, the story is actually pretty cool. If you got a sec, you want me to tell you about it?
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
yeah, it's so I'm glad I did go to art school when I did, at least for that year, because not only did I like wind up here in Maine where I love it, but I got the idea for this book here like the very first day of art history class in the Portland Museum of Art. We were in the like the basement where there's a big slide projector and gallery, and they were going through everything we were going to talk about that year in art history class. And when the teacher got to cave painting, she said something along the lines of, cave painting is the first form of art and we have no idea why they did it. And then she just clicked the slide and moved on. And I thought that was nuts, because if it's the first form of art, it's like the oldest art we've ever found. Why does it exist? Like, why was it made? Why were some cave people out there like hunting and gathering and risking their lives and chasing down buffalo or whatever they did, or inventing the wheel and fire and all that? But other ones were being all artsy fartsy in the cave and drawing pictures and doing this or that and like telling stories about the great hunt instead of living it. And what I realized about immediately was that I've only been in art school about a day at that point, and I'm not going to be the one to answer this question. So I started thinking more personally and internally about why I make art and why, like I told you in my story, I decided when I was 4, it was all I was ever going to do. And when I was 11, it was going to be comics. And then when I couldn't just get a job from Marvel at 11, I had to find like a new plan B, plan C, whatever it was to, have this be my job. It's all I've ever wanted to do. And so it was the same reason then as it is now. And basically, it comes down to the fact that artists and writers and creative people, I feel like we all just have a thing that we have to be doing. And if we're not doing it, we don't feel fulfilled and we don't feel like we're getting through the day right. And you feel grumpy and you're acting out on other people, or you're perceiving every situation as terrible. And I think it can be writing, poetry, music, it's all that stuff. And so this story is actually 2 stories. It's about the world's first painter ever, and then a modern day painter named Nathan, who actually has an art gallery at the Portland Museum of Art where I came up with the idea. And it just so happens this big cave exhibit is coming to the same museum. So throughout the 300 pages, you see these parallels, and you go, well, I know that the caveman and his love wound up together like in an embrace underground and forgotten about for thousands of years. I hope that doesn't happen to like the modern day counterparts. And the whole idea is like, if the purpose of making art is because you have to, and it's such like a selfish thing that you just need to like expel, what's the purpose for everybody else? And I think it's to learn from the past and move forward through time without making the same mistakes over and over again. So it was like all that. And I was like, I'm going to do this huge,
Wow.
crazy ass book. And I was like, they're going to see it and they're going to be like, wow, that's awesome. Do you want to draw Spider-Man? Do you want to draw Ninja Turtles? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? So this is 4 years after I wasn't able to go to school. So it's basically my school. And then when it came out, nothing really changed. I was doing more shows. I sold a lot of books, maybe like 200 books. It was back before Kickstarter. So it was like the
Wow.
Facebook version where I was hyping it. Like I'm on page 200, 230, 231, 232. And I would take pre-orders. And so the whole first run
Wow.
was just paid for by pre-orders, which essentially is Kickstarter, right? And so that just led to other books. I started making smaller comics. I started making comics with friends. It's basically, if you want to make comics, just make comics. And I tried to make as many as I could so that the odds of them landing in front of the right people to like open a door for some character I've always wanted to draw were there. But what I realized more than anything was like, you can just self-publish and you'll be fine. And it's the best. And so I started, this is the longest answer to your very first question, but
That's good. It's great.
I wound up getting like roped into the turtle world, but that's a whole different story we can hone in on if anyone has any questions about like how'd you get turtle stuff. And I
For
found
sure.
myself finding some popularity and doing a lot of commissions. And what happened was I was like, I want to get back to telling my own stories. Like I haven't even written anything. Like I was a writer too, you know. I haven't written anything in like 2 years because I've been like, well, I can get $70 for a Leonardo or $60 for a
Yeah.
Mikey, or you know, and it just becomes this business. And then you're like, oh, I got to get back to what I love about it, which is the whole point of Nathan the Caveman. And so this is the last thing I'll mention, and then we'll talk more specifically. But that's when I did have the idea for a Kickstarter for a book called The Aggregate, which is my most recent self-published thing, and I'm working on book 2 right now. But it's it's a post-apocalyptic sci-fi book with giant robots and spider cats. I'll show you the spider cats. They're cute, 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 but deadly. But the really cool thing about this book is it's the world's first split decision comic, which if you remember, that's the name of my company here.
Hmm.
And the idea is like an old choose your own adventure book. It lets you decide where you're going to go and what's going to happen,
Oh,
keep
wow.
running or turn around. And so this book has 4 beginnings, 7 endings, and 20 choices in between. And the
Oh my
most I've ever
gosh.
heard, yeah, the most I've ever heard someone has read it is like 100 or so times. I don't know the math as far as like the middle variables and how that all shakes out, but I know that all the to be continues are beginnings in book 2, and I have book 2 already written, and it's all just like getting bigger and bigger. I have a binder over there with tabs and tabs. So yeah, that's the longest answer to who I am, what I do, but it's a lot of self-publishing. It's a lot of like self-motivation of like, this is what you've always wanted to do, so go freaking do it. And then nowadays I'm working on some bigger turtle stuff and another book with Kevin Eastman we can talk about as well, but I'll let you do some talking. Sorry.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
thank you.
that those letters too. Your letter to Marvel, and your
Yeah.
letter back. 11-year-old. That's so gutsy for an 11-year-old. But it's so cool. Like you
Set
knew
goals, get
exactly.
goals.
Yeah, you knew what you wanted to do right then. I mean, a lot of us probably didn't. I mean, I knew around that same age, I was like, I want to draw comic books, and then a
Yeah.
lot of distractions happen along the way.
Yeah.
But
I I always
that's
I always
awesome.
had it in my mind. I always had it in my mind that anyone else who was like me and the same age and stuff and that wanted to be drawing comics, like they're quitting all the time, right? And so I was like,
Yeah,
I just have to not quit. My
not
dad used to
right.
say that about music. He's a musician. He would say, everyone's falling off or, doing something else. And so I was like, I wanted to be like the youngest guy to draw like Spider-Man or something. And then I was like, oh, I missed that goal. That's all right. Yeah. But,
That's cool. Like, I wonder throughout the whole course, I mean, when you start like a 300-page book,
mhm.
and then I can't even imagine trying to map out a choose your own adventure kind of book
Yeah.
as a comic. That's crazy
Split
in
decision.
its
Yeah.
own. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
But I wonder.
it's, you go ahead.
I
Yeah.
was wondering about the evolution of, like, your skills, 'cause, is that something that you can acknowledge after you've finished,
Mm-hmm.
300 pages? Are you looking back at seeing, like, how you've evolved as a storyteller or as an artist,
Yeah.
as a draftsman?
In both ways. Like the story is, if we're talking just like writing, like I wrote the aggregate as like one giant thing. It's this big binder with all these tabs that say turn to this scene, because I couldn't number the pages because I didn't know what page numbers they'd actually be. So it's all, everything's like named like in scenes and things like that. The colorist loved that when she got the pages and she's like, what page is this? Um, but I started with just like kind of a roadmap of scenes, and then I knew where, some of them would hit, and then I wanted to make sure that, if possible, every thread, even if it's a short one, has the character arcs and the story motivations for each of those characters. A lot of the decisions sprinkled throughout, like even on a longer thread or a longer like don't go after her, leads to like all these different events, but
Mm.
a lot of these choices might loop you right back in, but you get like this piece of character development you wouldn't have got. Like it might be the villain monologuing like more in depth about his motivations, or it might be the guy and the girl like finally getting into their feelings about each other and then like being like whatever, and then it goes right back to where it would have been had you not chosen that. But you get like this greater insight. And what ended up being cool about the whole split decision format, once that book was done and I could look back, was that like everybody reads every thread. No one reads one for like 20 minutes and goes, okay, that was neat. Like you go, okay, well, where did I go wrong? And then you do the other one. And what you get like after you put the book down for a couple months and you remember that book, oh, I remember reading that book, is like this grander worldview of the whole thing. And like, because you did get wildly different things, but the characters always kind of came from the same place until something happened to them that sends them on a, and so it's pretty cool the way that that works and stews in your head. But as far as looking back on that work and like, yeah, like the beginning of Nathan the Caveman versus the end of Nathan the Caveman, it was like, ooh, I got to redo all this. And I think I redid like two pages, and then I realized, and it was good to realize on my first book, you know, that like you can't do that. You can't go
Yeah.
back and start again, or it'll just be this thing that's always going. Um,
Right.
and now even I'm looking at aggregate book one, and looking at the script from a story perspective, like I was saying, and I need to rewrite a lot of it because I wrote it in like 2016, and I've gotten better at writing the same way you get better at drawing because it's just those hours. And so doing a lot of rewriting and adding new scenes and whole new beginnings. And that's what's really cool about that book is like I can add things anywhere, and I could go in 6 years and add a whole arc in the middle of that book that just is like, you know, 2.2 or something. uh, it's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I
So
definitely have seen a jump in my Ronin pages versus everything I've done before, and so it'll be interesting to go back to aggregate and see if it still looks like the same guy or if I should tone it down or
right.
something. But
That now that you bring up Ronin, I wonder if you could take us what is
yeah,
your road to the turtles? How do you get to the
yeah,
turtle?
I'll tell you. So it all started by making fake covers. I basically like so many other artists out there and people watching, I was doing fan art. I had an
Fan
awesome
art.
idea for like the best crossover of all time, which could only exist at IDW at the time because of rights, and it couldn't anymore because of rights. But it was crossover of Ben 10 and the Ninja Turtles, and it was called
Oh,
TMN 10. And
nice.
like Ben has all the qualities of each turtle, and the turtles all have qualities of him. And it was basically they were no longer going to be teenagers; they were turning 20, and so was Ben. So he was no longer going to be
Oh,
Ben 10, and so it was like this whole thing. But I was just doing character designs and things like that, and then people started to dig them. And then I started doing fake covers and having prints at shows, like so many people do. And after like I was also in communication with IDW and the editor at the time, and trying to get, you know, a cover job, just like so many other people. But people need
sure.
to know, like, an editor has friends. You know, they have lots of comic book friends that have been asking them to give them covers for so long. So like, even though my art might have been good enough, like they're just like, yeah, I'm sorry, like it's a long line, you know. And so it was like over and over and over again rejection. I had maybe like 13 fake covers at shows and things like that, that I was like, well, I guess I'll sell them as prints. And then a artist friend, Ben Temple Smith, who did 30 Days a Night, wandered over to my table at Boston Comic Con and was like, oh, you're doing turtles now, right? Because he thought they were real. And I was like, no. I was like, no, they won't let me. They won't let me. And he's like, what? And so like 2 hours later, I had an email from Chris Ryle over there, CC'd with Temple
What?
Smith, saying like, hey, heard you want to do a cover. And it really just happens like that. It's like people
Yeah,
going out of their way for friends, and making those introductions. And he never would have came to my table if I hadn't met Ben and developed a relationship for 3 years. So like these things take time. And then when that happened, I started getting some cover work. And then when I started getting the cover work, this is actually, here, I'll flip to the thing so we can have some visuals. This was my very first cover here, which is issue 55. Let me get it in focus. And it's actually like, I think just this month was the 8-year anniversary. So I've been, wow, since I got this cover, I think it's been about 8 years. And then I got more
wow.
covers. I got Donatello, Mikey,
Yeah, these are great. I love the
Leo. These are the macro series, so it's like a double-sized issue that focuses on each turtle. Um, and we'll get back to the macro series in a sec because it's important. But they just kept. I kept getting new covers. I would work with shops if people are interested in getting variant covers. Like shops are able to order their own variants through the publishers. So make friends with your shops and, you know, say, do you want to split a variant cover, and you know, always get a sketch cover back if you can, because then you can use them at shows. And then yeah, more Turtles, Bebop and Rocksteady, Batman and Turtles, Power Rangers and Turtles. That's more recent. Ghostbusters and
Mhm.
Turtles, Transformers. Um, so this was all without this was all like without Eastman or anything. Like I hadn't met Kevin yet. This all came about just from the Ben Templesmith thing, and then kind of like letting the commissions and the cover jobs snowball. And this was around the time I also was like, man, I got to get back to my own stories. And I did the Kickstarter for the aggregate. And it was actually the aggregate that put me in front of Kevin, because I reached out to both him and Peter Laird for a quote on the back. And Pete actually gave me one. He says, beautiful artwork and an ambitious story. I was like, what? And then Kevin never gave me one. And I was like, oh, okay, well, he's probably busy. And then one Heroes Con in North Carolina, after like a mediocre day at the show or whatever, we're having drinks at the hotel next door. And my phone buzzed, and it was Kevin Eastman saying, hey, Ben, like Kevin Eastman here. Do you want to do a book with me? Like, what are you doing for the next year? And I was like, what the hell? My friends were like, you got to get outside and call him. Yeah. And so he had seen the aggregate because I'd sent it to him for a quote, and it was on his coffee table. And I think his wife, Courtney, was like, you should hire this guy to do your book, Drawing Blood. And then they showed it to the co-writer, David, and they agreed that I should. So this is the book that Kevin and I do together called Drawing Blood. And it's the fictional true story of how the Turtles were created. But instead of Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, they're created by Shane Bookman and his brother, Paul. And instead of creating the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shane and Paul create the radically rearranged Ronin ragdolls, who are samurai cats named after famous anime directors Miyazaki, Tezuka, and Otomo. Yeah. And so this is like a recreation of that issue 1 that we pretend came out way back when from Shane and his brother. But this is how I kind of got in leagues with Kevin, and we became friends, and I became his Padawan of sorts. And then he was, when Last Ronin came about, Last Ronin, for people that don't know, I got that too around here, it was meant to be the last story that Kevin and Pete ever did together. It's the co-creators, Kevin and Peter Laird. And Pete's involvement is really just, he had typed out like this huge outline with sketches and all these predictions about the future and stuff, and like what this story would be about. And it's supposed to be kind of the end of their turtles that they had created up to that point. It was written, that document from Pete was written a year before I was even born. So they didn't know like what would happen with the turtles, but they were already planning like a swan song kind of thing. And so that's part of what makes this so special, is because it's based on Pete's, original notes with Kevin and their thing. And what's special about it to me is there's the brothers, the Esau, Isaac and Escorza. Isaac and Esau Escorza, I think that's how you say it. They're doing the main line of like the Ronin, and he's like the last turtle left. All the brothers are dead, and you don't know which turtle it is in issue 1. You got to figure that out. But so they do the main line, and I get to do all the flashbacks, and each issue I get to do a flashback of killing one of those brothers. Right. And so it's brutal, but it's like the honor of a lifetime, right? Like, and so so I've got pages and stuff from that I might buzz through at some point during this, but I guess we should say spoiler warning if you haven't read 1 through 3. It's a 5-issue thing, and I mean I can not show it if you want, but
I want to see the art. I mean,
okay,
I've read them, so I'm good. Everyone else can just close your eyes, cover your eyes.
So that was actually that's pretty much my first time. Well, not pretty much, but that's my first time on interiors for Turtles, and actually really on like a mainstream book at all. Aside from this is the macro series I was talking about with Raphael, and this was the first time Kevin and I did kind of a story together. This was during Drawing Blood, and so it was the same situation. He was like, hey, I want to do this book together, like we should do it. And it's Target R, but with Raphael essentially. So he's like the maddest he's ever been, and it's just raging out in the woods and using scrap metal instead of his size, and it's awesome. So that's what led to maybe his belief that I could handle Ronin. But
that's awesome. I was very interested in how your collaboration works with Kevin Eastman. I wonder, because he's still doing layouts for some of this stuff. Right?
Yeah. Let me show you on this, because the books, a lot of people have probably noticed, have like a big creative team.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, who's doing what now? And so Kevin does all the layouts. He's writing the script with Tom Waltz, which is of course based on the adaptation or the transcript by Pete and him way back in the day. But Kevin, yeah, he does layouts for every page. So I'll show you kind of what those look like comparatively. So here's one from issue, what is this, issue 2 here.
Wow.
And this is a side, shot of, or a front shot, but half profile face of Fugitoid. And then there's like a ship and the guys back there getting ready to fly off. And what he's got here is, Donnie, April, and Fugitoid at the computers. And so this is basically what all his layouts look like. They have notes to me in the margins. And then this is how I wound up, I gotta go way back on this. I wound up translating that same page, So
Nice.
I actually, this is my rough too. I do all my roughs digitally, which is what's great about your product, the Sketchboard Pro, is because I can take my entire work. Like when I'm here at the studio, I'm on the big 32 Cintiq and Photoshop,
Yeah.
and then I go home and I do it on the couch. It's great. More and more, I'm trying not to work at home, but I'm prepared now. But you can see that's kind of how that page translated. I'll show you another one. Some
It's
of them change
cool.
a little. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's
Some of
cool to
them.
see how you took liberties with some of the layout.
Yeah, and he's really awesome about that. We've talked about it, and at times I'd be like, "Hey, like you can always tell me if I'm going too far or something," but he's told me, he's like, what I've learned, because he's the world's biggest collaborator, right? He collaborated with everybody back, even the original issue 1. Like they would hand those pages back and forth. It wasn't like one guy's a penciler, one guy's an inker. And so
Right.
he told me, he was like, you'd be an idiot to say no to or not listen to good ideas. And so he really does appreciate all my ideas. Him and David both on Drawing Blood. I've never had a single note on a single page. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, they're just like, yep, you read our minds. But this one, so we've got we'll do it maybe panel for panel on this one so you can see it a little bit better. But we've got Mikey and April up there with Fugitoid. And for me, I was concerned with the direction, where we're going to go, make sure that it's flowing this way. And Kevin just has different sensibilities. Nothing's right or wrong, but he's got kind of that action leading to this way. And I just sometimes will swap that around. Actually, this isn't even the right page. Sorry. I was
I was like,
wondering why
wow,
that
that's
looked so
really
weird.
different.
No, it's not the right page. Shoot. Oh, I've got it right here. It is really different though. Sorry guys, that was weird. So yeah, I still have them heavy on this side like that. Casey in the back. And then something like this though, we've got a lot of little panels here because there's so much that happens in this
Yeah.
issue that I wanted to just I don't need a whole wide shot of the Foot Clan setting bombs, for example. So I just thought oh, I'll show it like this, one bomb,
Sure.
and then when it goes off, you know why.
Yeah.
And it left more room for, let me back up a bit. It left more room for this back and forth between Casey and Leo here. And then I knew on this bottom panel, and Turtle fans will probably recognize that shot from the beginning of the second movie when they jump up into the air and the title screen comes up. So I think those poses are almost exact. And I thought that would be a nice callback.
Awesome.
And then from as far as taking liberties and stuff like that, some issues I have more design work than others. This issue 3, I had a ton because they're in this high tech facility. It's underground of the second time around shop that you see in the movies, April's antique store, but it just goes way into the sewers and into the depths of the city and things like that. But there was also a lot of character stuff that Kevin just may or may not have got to before I did, and sometimes he'd ask me to, like I did. He told me he wanted the new Mausers in issue 3 to nod to our favorite movie, The Thing, and I was all about that. So we made the Mausers the Norris head here. And then with Casey, I'll just show you this. These are Kevin's notes, and then these are the Strikers, which I think are such a cool development in issue 3, which is basically Leo and Casey have their own Lost Boys. Essentially, it's ex-Purple Dragons who now are obsessed with what they're doing and helping them out. So some dress like Casey, and some actually dress like Leo. There's a shot of I'll show you in the actual issue. Yeah, where is it? Yeah, there's a shot of I put some Easter eggs in here. I'll show you guys real quick. But I thought if they were devout followers to these guys, there's one who clearly is more dressed like Casey with the mask and things like that on his head. And then I've got, she's way in the crease here, but this woman who's got kind of a Leo mech suit on. Can you see her?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in my mind, that's the human Venus. I don't know if you remember the Venus turtle from the Next Mutation that everyone hates.
Yeah.
So that's Venus. That's Venus before she gets mutated. But I also snuck in Kino there, Pizza Boy.
Nice.
Yeah, I love Kino. So anyway, this is kind of where my design goes from Kevin's ideas. But the same thing happened with all the strikers. Like, it's just a lot of fun. Kevin knew he wanted Casey to have a sledgehammer, and for whatever reason, I don't think he really has ever before. Uh, and we named he named it the Ledge, which is like a really sweet inside joke with his son. I think he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but it was like his son's named Shane Bookman, and they were at like one of the first shows he went to Kevin with, and there was already like a big line of people waiting for Kevin, and his son was like, "Why are all these people waiting for you?" And he's like, I'm kind of a big deal. He's like, "They're all waiting for you," and he joked around and was like, "Yeah, I'm a legend. They call me the Ledge." and so his son like always calls him that, like, still to this day. And I guess the first guy that came up was like, "Hey, Mr. Eastman, you're a legend." Like, and Shane was like, "What the hell?" Yeah. And so we brought that into there, which is nice and sweet for them for sure. And then just show you some cool stuff. This my Leo design. I love the fact that I got to do redesigns for all this stuff, and especially like aged up, grizzled versions. And then being able to show like stuff that harkens back to, what brought me into Turtles, which was the toys and the cartoon. And so like I designed these, this is supposed to be Baxter Stockman's like first robotic foot soldiers. And so I was like, well, then they should look as much like the show and cartoon as possible, and toys as possible. So here's hoping those get made into toys, because that'd be full circle.
But we need more toys for Turtles, that's for sure.
Yeah. While I've got the camera pointed this way, I'll just flip through some of the originals if you want to see.
Yeah.
I do all my roughs like you saw. These are my roughs digitally, like I said, either on the iPad or here on the Wacom. And then I print them out, and I actually print out 2 copies, and I put one on my wall right in front of my desk here that you can't see. So I just have this big wall of what I've accomplished and where the story's going. And especially if I'm doing finals, it's good to know, see the whole book at once. But all my finals are pencil. This is actually, it's all just mechanical pencil. So this is that second time around shot. I don't think the rough is in there, but I'll show you a before and after kind of thing. These are just some ink samples I was doing for fun, but this is some of the Raphael stuff from issue 2, this was really like my diving in point, because in issue 1, I only have 1 page. There's a Kevin and Pete cameo that I put in.
That panel.
That wasn't in the script. he got the page, and he was like, "What? That's awesome!" And then this is also a famous pose for people who know the original Mirage comics, and so that whole page is kind of stacked. This one I'm on. I put myself on this page. Nice. Right here, and this is a callback to the movie when he's yelling in the sewer, and the guy's like, "Wait, what?" And that person walking the dog right there is the main character from the aggregate. So I was having a ton of fun doing stuff like that. But yeah, this is all just HB mechanical pencil, super duper clean, and that comes from my roughs being so tight. You're either spending time. It's all hours, so like I'm either going to spend more time doing the rough and less time doing the final because of that, or I'm going to be working it out on the final. And I really don't want to work stuff out on these, because I want to keep them as nice as possible, because I'm able to scan that in, turn it to grayscale, and just like tweak the levels just like a millimeter, and it's printable. And so that's actually no inks. Yeah, that's actually awesome. It's a trick I learned way back when on Nathan the Caveman. Actually, even Nathan the Caveman was all pencil. The original idea was to ink it eventually, but then, like I said, after 4 years, I was like, do I really need to? And so I had emailed on like DeviantArt or something. I emailed Linnell Francis Yu, who was doing
Mm,
he was doing like New Avengers at the time with like Luke Cage, and he had just done, or he hadn't done yet, but Secret Invasion, and you might know him from those things. But his stuff was all pencils. There was no inks, and I asked him how he
right.
did it, and he emailed me back like immediately, told me the levels trick, and I've been doing it like literally every single day since. It was the nicest piece of information. So you just
Nice.
got to ask people sometimes.
Yeah. How'd you do
Um,
that?
this is my Baxter Stockman, who is Kevin wanted to look like Sam Jackson, and
Ah,
so we're kind of like, speaking of manifestation and set goals, get goals, we're putting it out into the universe like it was with Ultimates. Like he saw the Ultimates book and was like, I'm going to play Nick Fury. No one else can play Nick
yeah,
Fury.
yeah.
So I want to do the same thing here with him there. So yeah, I won't go all that much further because of spoilers, but I'll go kind of
You
quick.
can't, right? I mean, I would love to
Yeah,
see
I got
them.
to stop right here. But yeah, uh, but I got to do some really fun stuff with Casey and Leo. Casey and Leo are honestly my two favorite turtle characters out of every character in the whole universe. So it was crazy that like issue 3 was really, a focus point on them, and I got to, send them off.
That's so
But
cool. I especially love that panel, that page where you see Casey's mask on the
oh,
sword
the
with all the
yeah,
rubble. That's so.
the
I mean,
Bleecker Street.
that's gonna be a very memorable shot from this
I
series, I think.
Yeah, let me show you one more time because I really like that shot too. Yeah, this is the Bleecker Street panel. And then I can go one more. I don't know if people saw the San Diego exclusive cover, but like that's something also I never thought I'd get to do, was the San Diego exclusive turtle cover for the biggest turtle book ever made. But
Right.
I made it the opposite side of the coin, whereas
Uh,
like where Mikey ends up in that very same explosion. And I was originally going to call this the Sullivan Street because that was the other side of, that's the cross street, I guess. But
uh.
I ended up just calling it the San Diego cover.
That is
So yeah,
awesome stuff, man. Thank you for sharing that. Is quite a
yeah.
bit of that, I imagine, gonna end up in, like collected editions or in like the director's cuts?
I hope so. I hope there's a whole giant hardcover because Kevin literally, and he does the same for the brothers. He's got a layout for every one of their pages, and I think looking at them side by side and seeing what changes and like what
Yeah.
didn't change is super interesting. And I used to, on the Target R book, that Raphael Macro, Kevin did the layouts on that too, and like at the time, I felt that it was kind of like it like held me back a little bit from, because I thought I was like, oh, I can do like crazier panels, or I should do this, or I should do that. But I think it was kind of perfect to know like, here's how Kevin would do it, like, which is some knowledge, right? Like it's something you should
Yeah.
know. Like here's how Kevin does action. Don't think you're better. And then when you have good ideas though, and that guy is like, oh my god, that's way better. Like that's awesome. So it's like don't be afraid to have your ideas, but like know when people know what they're doing. Like a comic will work a billion different ways, and
Sure.
Kevin wants everyone to have their own voice the same way I do, and the same way anyone making comics do. So it's been good. But yeah, they should do some giant book with all the designs. And I think they're doing, actually, I should mention issue 4 comes out this Wednesday, so the 22nd.
Yeah.
You can see it's kind of my last big hurrah. I've only got a few pages in issue 5. But
Aw.
that's fine. I'm going back to drawing blood, back to aggregate too.
The important stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But I think they're also putting out like an archive kind of book, and I think they were
Mhm.
saying it's printed square format, which is odd, but it's going to have some of that behind the scenes stuff. And before, when I heard about it, I reached out to IDW and I sent them all my design stuff because I'm not sure if they knew that Kevin and I were kind of like both, batting stuff back and forth. And I think that
Yeah.
that evolution of like Kevin sending me his sketch of the Norris head Mauser and then mine, and then him going, well, maybe like this, and then like us finding it is like the most interesting thing. So I hope
Yeah.
they do it. Yeah.
It's a treasure trove. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
grateful you shared it with us because, I'm not sure if it doesn't get into that book, I'm not sure how else we would see it. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
but that is so cool. I do want to make some time for questions and answers. So people in the
Hmm.
chat, if you could start lining up your questions for in a few minutes from now, we'll touch on those.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I was hoping you could talk to us about your Bishark Kids Club that you
Yeah.
do, because this is something that I can't think of another comic book artist who was doing anything like this, and it's
Mhm.
super cool. Every time I see him pop up on Instagram, I'm like, "This is amazing. Why am I not in this already?"
Yeah. Yeah. So I have something called the Bishark Kids Club. This is one of our boxes with that same awesome shot of Leo and them, and basically it's a monthly club with quarterly Bish boxes, and all the members are called Bish Kids. and and while it sounds like a cult on the surface, it's really not. No, we've got like a big Discord channel, and it's this whole community thing I was telling you about, that just became so apparent that people needed, and myself needed, through like the last couple years. Is just like a place to have those comic convention kind of talks, or trade comics, or trade toys, or people will tag like at Toy Hunters, I'm at Target, who needs the Muckman, and then they'll like hook each other up,
Right.
or like this guy got COVID and people are running raffles to help them out and things like
Oh,
that. And but it all started. We have like 270 something members now, and so
wow.
yeah, it's a lot to track. I was able to hire an assistant now who really helps kind of manage the club and the website and definitely all of the shipping. But even now, I think next week we're getting an intern, so my assistant's going to have her own intern. And so like, which seems
An
crazy, but it's like,
empire.
yeah, when you like kind of pivot from just making comics into like, oh, this thing took off and now it's very business, and I have to do a lot of that stuff, and more now that the club is growing. Because the whole idea when it started as like, just, I think I had like 17 people for the first year or something, and it was just like my most diehard friends and fans who I would just go, what don't you have yet? And I had some awful spreadsheet where I would try and like get them something I didn't have. And then by the time it got to like 30 members, like, I can't do this anymore, tracking who has what. And
Yeah.
I would run out of stuff, and I would just ship them an original page or something. And I was like, what am I doing? And so I wound up like going, what if it's all exclusive? It's all made just for that box, every quarter box. And then I won't have to worry if they have it or not, because there's no way they have it. And so
Yeah.
that led to cooler boxes, and the cooler boxes led to like, this looks more like a real thing, and then that led to more members, and then of course last Ronin just like blew it up. I think like from mid-July to mid-August, I was just looking at it, and it was like 38 new members. And so it's
Wow.
really like, it's getting wheels, and it's cool. And but again, the greatest thing to come out of it is just the people in it. And like, when I'm not chatting in the club, obviously they all are, and it's like its own thing, even when I'm not able to, mix it up as much as I want to be or something like that. But the exclusives are really dope. There'll be like 11 by 17 artist editions of some of my books, or,
Whoa.
variant covers or stickers, or we've been doing like really specialty prints that come in their own like numbered envelopes and things like that. And as the club grows, I'm able to order. It's all very like DIY grassroots still, even if it
Uh-huh.
looks nicer than it. But like, I'm able to do bigger quantity stuff, and so the prices go down. And then you're able to get cooler stuff, like the idea of like putting a hat in a box for 250 people. When you think about like, that's one of the items in the box. Let's do that math, and then the math on every of those items. So the more it gets bigger, the better the boxes are getting, because I let that budget for each box be dictated by one of the months from that quarter. And that's like
Wow.
my poor man's budgeting for fish boxes. Yeah.
That's smart.
But it's
That's
really good.
cool.
I love it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds it. That's awesome. So you're able to do more merch, it sounds like, too, like with those different types
Yeah.
of products, like hats and stuff like that.
Yeah. Try new stuff, make cool shirts, and shirts with like, where in the past, when I would make shirts, it'd be like, okay, it's got to be one color. And how many sizes do I get? And now it's like, we're going to do all 4-color bandanas, black shirts,
Nice.
like, and then like really nice. And so we're able to make nicer stuff and more of it. And it's a lot of fun.
That's so cool. Well,
Yeah.
I hope more and more people sign up, 'cause, I'd love to
Yeah.
see where you take that.
Yeah. I actually just introduced the budget Bish level, which is only $5 a month. It kind of spawned from, now that I'm thinking about it, way back. It's like a Patreon, but off
Yeah.
Patreon's books. Like, I was like, well, I can do that myself, you
Yeah,
know?
this is cooler
So,
to me. I mean, I like stuff, right? So,
yeah.
like, this is cooler to me than a Patreon
Yeah.
if you ask me. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's
So,
awesome. So, let's go ahead and pull up some questions here.
all right.
This one is actually pretty good. I was wondering the same thing when you mentioned your digital roughs and your
Mm-hmm.
final pencils. Are you just, you said you print them, are you just referencing from them as you draw something new, or are you lightboxing them? Are you printing them blue line?
Yeah,
How
I'm
does that work?
definitely lightboxing. I maybe glazed over that. But right here, built into my desks, I've got glass with the light under it. And so, yeah, I'll
Hmm.
print out, I usually print out like three. I print out one for the wall, one for next to me to reference, and then one that goes under my nice clean sheet of Bristol. Um, and yeah, I do my final traditionally right on top of it on a clean sheet with the use of the lightbox.
Cool. Yeah, I had that same question, but and then the question
Mhm.
came up, so that's a great question. So I thought I'd save it.
Well, I used
Uh,
to, back in Nathan the Caveman days, I still used the light box. It was actually the same desk, but I would
uh,
use 8.5 by 11 like sheets of scrap paper as essentially my Photoshop layers. So I would like spin them all around. I would blow it up, sometimes print it back out, and I'd have this thing all cobbled together with tape, and then put a clean sheet over it and do that.
uh,
But now, which is why I do my roughs digitally, I can do all that exact same stuff,
sure.
scaling, twisting, flipping, erasing, saving for later. Like I can do all that digitally and print out one nice sheet. So that's the new process, but still the old ways.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
So Girl 2341 wants to know, what did you ink with when you used to ink your comics?
Um, I never inked comics. I've never inked my pages. The only things I really ink are some commissions,
Uh-huh.
like on a sketch cover or an 11 by 14 or something. Because when I give people like a fully finished pencil commission, they still don't think it's fully finished. They're
Yeah.
like, "Well, you're gonna ink it?" And it's like,
That's funny.
no. Yeah, it's just, and I guess I was like, that was always in the back of my head with comics too. Like they call it penciling and inking, and it's like if I do it the way I do it, are they gonna like claim it's not done? Are they gonna still pay me for both steps, even though I call it roughing and finalizing? You know what I mean? Like it's the same
Yeah.
thing. So no, but as far as like what kinds, I use those Uniball. I think it's the brand, black pens. I like those because they come in all different sizes, and it's the same way I draw with a mechanical pencil. It's very like technical. So I'm
Technical.
not a brush guy. I wish I was a brush guy. I look at people like Paul Azaceta, I think that's how you say
Uh,
it, from Outcast, and I'm just like, what the hell? Or John Paul Leon, Tommy Lee Edwards, and I'm just like, I want that. Like, how do you get likeness with like
yeah,
3 brush strokes? Like, how do you do that?
it's like magic,
But
huh?
yeah, I've been focusing on watercolors these days and really trying to get good at that because
Yeah,
it's
I've seen some of those on your remarks and stuff. Those are awesome.
thanks, thanks. Yeah, I'm just like I haven't watched any classes or anything. I'm going to because I don't want to just do it all myself. But I've just been like, let's see what happens. And what I found is because my pages are so tight and technical and I'm so neurotic about keeping them clean and stuff, the watercolor just like scratches that exact opposite part of
Mm,
my brain where I can just like, it's better to just let it dry and see what happens,
yeah,
and
it's kind of it's
mhm.
a surprise.
Yeah, you can't control it. I mean, some people can, but
Right.
I'm not trying to right now. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Let's see. This is a good question. Wade from
Thank you.
Jersey wants to know, how does someone contact you for a commission?
It's a very good question, Wade. So he's a Bish kid, and my commissions have been closed for a very, very long time. So right now, the only way to
Mm,
get a commission from me is to get on one of the 2 higher tier Bish Club levels. And those are all sold out because they only have a couple spots. The
sure.
$200 spot has 4 spots, but especially if you want to roll in at like $10 or something, the club is so awesome. They swap those spots with each other all the time. So we have like a whole thread in there where someone's like, "Hey, I'm interested in taking over for a quarter if anyone wants to swap." And then my assistant Emily will plug it in, and we'll just take the requests from a different person. And then, so my best advice, if that were a real question from a real guy who wanted one who didn't know he wanted one,
Yeah, Wade
is
probably
to
knew already, huh?
yeah, well, he's in that level. So basically
Yeah.
contact Wade and get his spot. So
Uh,
yeah. But
that's some death
get in the
threats,
club
maybe.
and just get in the club and just put it out there that you want to get one of those spots, and someone will usually help you out.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, I
Yeah.
had one more question I had was, you are doing a lot. I know you've got you got an assistant and an intern on the way.
Yeah.
How do you balance all this stuff and like still take care of yourself and making sure like you're not,
Yeah.
just breaking your back to make all this happen?
Well, I definitely was like before I got my assistant Emily in here full time. She was an intern years ago. I had her as an intern for 2 years, many years ago, and then I would just pay her for like a big thing of shipping I needed to do every now and then. And then we quickly were like, you need to be, because we were like, we'll finish it tomorrow, and it was next week, and so we said you need to come in tomorrow and just start making it your real thing. And so that is actually kind of my answer. Is like, I think the club has been the answer to how I can afford to do it, but it's like having being away from the shipping and then going, okay, what else do I want to kind of be away from? And it's like, I don't want to be dealing with, as many schedules and things like that. I need somebody to help with that. And getting those cleared off your plate so that I do have more drawing time has been really good. That's the goal of having the help anyway, so I can get back to just drawing. And now like diving into watercolors, like I'm just like getting really into, getting good at another thing. I want to get good at that, and
Yeah.
then be like, wow, he was so good at watercolors, like after I'm dead. But like the space, like it's all like self-care. Like the space is over here. I've got like a ton of plants and 6 windows that overlook this river.
Nice.
I don't know if you can hear it, but like I'm just trying to make everything as stress-free and as zen as possible. And like I really don't fight with a lot of people in my life anymore. You have to sit down when you're at the desk for 16 hours and just be like, this is what you've always wanted to do. Like, and now, especially whereas I'm on like last Ronin, it can like, I'll get like misty eyed thinking about it. I was like, can you imagine like your 11-year-old self, like on this of all books and like working with Kevin and like,
Right.
it seems like not real, like most of the time. And so if I'm ever grumpy or my back's hurting or I don't want to be drawing, I just like remind myself like how, like, this is all you've ever wanted. Like, just do it. Like, and I think I was telling you, like, I used to be really hard on myself because when you're at home and not going to school for 4 years, working on this book that you hope just like gets you a job drawing Batman or Spider-Man or something, you don't really know how it's going to go. And you have to be self-disciplined and hard on yourself and be like, no, you're not going to go out tonight, or no, you're not going to watch Netflix and chill. Like, you have to draw this page. And now I found ways to be that same kind of like hard boss, but not be miserable. Like I used to not go to the bathroom until I finished a panel or something. I'd be like, no, I got to get it right. I got to get it right. Cause it was like my motivation to, just do it, just do it. And I timestamp all my pages that I was showing you in that book. And I found that now, whereas I'll just like go take a break or hop on a skateboard and do like 2 circles, like these micro breaks, they don't disrupt anything. They help. And the timestamp shows me that back then it was the same amount of time it took me to do a page, except I was miserable that whole day and like in
Uh-huh.
pain and stressed out. And now I'm like zipping around on a skateboard and sitting in the window, or like, and the work still gets done, but you come at it from a place of love instead of fear.
Yeah.
You're not like, oh, what if happens if I don't get this done? Or like, I only have today to do it. Like, instead be like, this is going to rock. I get to fucking draw turtles all day. Like, so that's the way I try to look at it nowadays.
That is so cool. Such great
Yeah.
advice. I mean, breaks are super
Thanks.
important and taking care of yourself and
Yeah.
don't hurt yourself. I mean,
No, you can
it,
still be self-employed without being like mean to yourself, and you don't
yeah,
need to burn out, and burnout is real, and the work is going to suck if you burn out.
sure.
And it's like, you want it to be good. That's the whole point.
And it's so cool that you're like real, you're pretty young still and to have realized some of this stuff. I mean, you're early in your
Yeah.
career and a lot of
I
times
hope
guys
so.
don't realize this until they're, 20 or 30 years in and then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, it's too late.
Yeah, I think that's actually, as you just said that, I just realized that's because I use Mike Mignola a lot. Because once I get, this turtle book out, off my plate, I'm going back to drawing blood and the aggregate. And so it's like create your own, like, what do you care about most in the world? And like, you get to do everything you want with it. And I think about Mike Mignola and like, I'm just going to do that. Like, I'm going to do the aggregate for as long as I want. And I'll do another book for as long as I want. But I'll be happy, like, staring at a river or wherever I am, like, and just being like, I get to make art every day. And like, and so much of it is because of the club and the other plates I've had spinning in the background that now just kind of like work. Like my store is good. I've got Emily helping me with it. And so I've got a big Instagram following, which is stuff that, as you know, like, that took a long, long time.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I start this now, then when it's all working, I'll be able to get back to just drawing, and it'll be like the most chill
Yeah.
ever. so, so that's what I'm hoping for. And then it just occurred to me as you're saying that yeah, Mike Mignola, when he was finally like, okay, I'm ending Hellboy, he's like, I'm gonna go watercolor. And I was like, yeah, that's what he wanted to do. So
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny because the reason I met you is because I think you were looking for more ways to make things
Hmm.
easier on yourself, right?
Hmm.
And I remember, so why don't I just mention our sponsor is
Yep.
the Sketchboard Pro. We're actually going to give away a couple of these in a minute here. But the Sketchboard Pro, if you like to draw on your iPad, is it's kind of modeled after old art boards. You can drop your iPad into it, and it creates a flat, smooth surface. So it makes it easier for drawing from a couch or drawing at a table. It has legs that pop out, or even drawing at a inclined desk. It'll hold your iPad up where it needs to be, closer to eye
Hmm.
level, so that you're not straining your wrists and your back and your neck. And it was invented out of necessity at our studio. We didn't mean to make this thing at all, but it happened because it needed to. And folks like Ben were so generous to pick one up very early on, and we love it. So if you use code Lightbox21 right now, you can get 15% off, and then we have free shipping in the U.S. and the U.K. and most of Europe. Um, but also, we're giving away 2 of these right now. So then it's going to be first come, first serve. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a code on the screen. And the way it works is
Ooh.
the first person to add a Sketchboard Pro to your cart at sketchboardpro.com and check out with this code, you get it. So if you try this in a minute or two and it doesn't work,
Do
it's
it.
because someone probably beat you to it.
It's
And the
crazy.
code is Casey Marie Jones. So
Nice.
put that code in. Someone in the US is going to get one. And then if someone internationally from our international shop is going to get one too. So it's a
Very
race.
cool.
Don't miss out. It's $100 and something dollar value. And like I said, I think once you start using one, you'll just be like, why didn't I have this before?
Oh yeah. No, I feel like I need one here too. Because what I do, I could show you my backpack. I have this giant carabiner on the back of my backpack, and I am able to hook it through the handle of the Sketchbook Pro, and then like the hole behind the iPad, and it's just like
Nice.
on my back, like flailing around, hitting crap all the time. But I bring it back and forth, and I'm like, this is like almost defeating the purpose of its portability. I guess it
Yeah.
is the purpose, but I was like, I should just have one at home. It'll be easier. And then my wife messaged me the same day that we had just spoke the other day, and she's like, "I think I want to get one of those board things you've got." And I was like, "It's at home. Use it. I'm on the phone with the guy right now." Like so it's tried and true. And then she used it and she loves it. Yeah, I gotta get another one.
Oh,
So
you text me. You have my number now.
okay.
So text me and I will hook you guys up. No
All
problem.
right.
Uh,
Thank you.
well,
Thanks.
thank you so
Mhm.
much for
Yeah.
showing us your process and how this book. I mentioned it before we started. When I saw that you were getting a sketchboard, I already knew your name because I knew the
Mm.
book. Because
Oh, cool.
everyone in my group of friends has been reading this book. Guys who don't normally read monthly or books, usually guys who wait for the trades, we
Yeah.
all like had to get it, and for obvious
Hmm.
reasons, you don't want the spoilers that just
Yeah.
get thrown around everywhere. But it's
Yeah,
amazing. It's
man.
one of our favorite books of the year, and the one of the most is still in print, and can't wait for
Thanks.
Wednesday, the next
Yeah,
issue.
Wednesday, issue 4. My scene, we're going to Japan, baby. It comes right after
Oh,
what's happened in issue 2 with Splinter and Donnie taking off in that ship to go to Japan. So page whatever, my first page, I land them there and things begin.
gotta see
So
what happens with these clans. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I'm having a ton of fun with I'm having a ton of fun with the different flavors of each issue. Like issue 2 with Raph was very, in the city, New York City, and then like the next one was underground and fire and kind of Blade Runnery with Leo and Casey, and this one is straight up like Ninja Turtles 3, where they're riding horses in Japan and stuff. Like it's gonna be awesome.
That's so
So,
cool, man.
but thanks
Well,
again.
big fan. Thank you so
Thanks.
much for sharing your time with us.
Mhm.
I'm so happy that you're here. Let me throw that giveaway code up one more time in case anyone hadn't grabbed it yet.
Go
Grab
get
that
it, Wade.
code. And if someone beats you to the punch, then we also have the Lightbox 21 code out there. And you can just get those at sketchboardpro.com. So
Awesome.
thank you everybody for coming
Yeah,
out. I
thanks.
love seeing all your comments. And We'll keep going. There's links in the description to all of Ben's stuff. Sign up for Bish Kids because
Yeah.
we don't want to miss this stuff.
Yeah, we gotta keep it growing. The boxes just get better and better. So
All right. Well, have a great rest of your weekend, Ben, and everyone else. I hope
thanks.
you enjoy the rest of Lightbox, and we'll see you later.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Thanks.